A CEO visited an old age home for a charity shoot, and was stunned to find the woman mopping the floor was the maid who once raised him like a son. The luxury SUV pulled up in front of the modest brick building, far from the marble offices and glass towers of downtown. It was a cloudy Tuesday, and the CEO of Dymark Tech, Arman Shah, was making what his PR team called a quick philanthropic stop at a local old age home, part of a new media campaign to soften the company's image. He wasn't thrilled about it. His morning had been back-to-back meetings. His calendar was packed. And honestly, posing for a few photos with senior citizens wasn't his idea of time well spent. But image was everything. Wearing a tailored navy suit, Arman stepped out of the car and was immediately met by the home's director, a kind-eyed woman in her 50s who greeted him with nervous enthusiasm. "Mr. Shah, we're honored. Truly. Most visitors don't come here without a personal connection." Arman gave a polite nod. "Happy to help where I can." Cameras clicked as he shook hands with staff, handed over a donation check, and knelt beside a few residents to smile for photos. Everything was going according to schedule. Until he saw her. Just beyond the group, down the hallway, a figure bent over a mop, working quietly. Worn slippers, graying hair tied back in a familiar bun. Her movements slow but precise, every gesture as if done 1,000 times before. Something tugged at him. Arman squinted. His heart skipped. It couldn't be. But when she straightened, wiped her brow, and turned his way, the breath caught in his throat. It was her. Time seemed to freeze. Arman stood still, halfway through a forced smile for the cameras, now completely unaware of the flashes going off. His eyes locked on the woman with the mop. And suddenly, he wasn't in an old age home anymore. He was 8 years old, sitting at a kitchen table covered in homework, the smell of dal and fresh rotis in the air, a soft voice humming old songs, gentle hands braiding his hair when he was sick, a warm lap to cry on after school when his parents were too busy to notice. Ruxana Auntie. The name slipped out of him like a breath. She didn't hear it. Not yet. She was too busy scrubbing the scuffed floor, unaware that the boy she used to carry on her hip now ran a tech empire. He started walking toward her, heart pounding. The director whispered behind him, "Sir, would you like to continue with the photos in the garden?" But Arman didn't respond. He was already down the hallway, shoes echoing softly on the tiles. "Excuse me," he said gently. Ruxana looked up, startled. Her eyes, weathered and kind, landed on him. She gave a faint, unsure smile, the way people smile at strangers who look familiar. And then she tilted her head, really seeing him. Her mop dropped. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Arman Baba?" His throat tightened. He hadn't heard that name, that tone, in over 20 years. Not since his family moved to Dubai. Not since she'd packed his school tiffin one last time and waved goodbye from a narrow gate with tear-filled eyes. "Ruxana Auntie," he said, voice cracking. "It's really you." They stood there for a beat, a billionaire in polished shoes and a woman in faded sandals holding a mop, locked in a moment that no camera could capture. And then she did what she always used to do when he scraped his knee or came home crying. She reached up and cupped his face. "You grew up," she whispered, smiling through tears. "I knew you'd be something big, but you're still my Arman Baba." And in that moment, the CEO disappeared. All that remained was a little boy. Home. They sat in a quiet corner of the courtyard, away from the cameras and the curious stares. A tray of tea had been brought over by one of the nurses, but neither of them touched it. Arman leaned forward in his chair, elbows on his knees, as Ruxana spoke in soft, measured words. It's been a long time, she said, hands folded in her lap. You were so small when your family moved away. After that, life just kept going. Why didn't anyone tell me where you were? Arman asked. My parents, they never said anything. I didn't know if you were even alive, she finished gently. I'm not surprised. When your father got that job abroad, everything moved so fast. They were generous. They paid me well when they left. But after that, I suppose I was no longer needed. He winced at the cold finality of it. I tried to look you up, she continued, but I don't know the internet. Didn't know how to find a CEO, she chuckled softly. I only knew how to fold your uniforms and pack your lunch. But this place? Arman looked around the old age home. Why are you here? Why are you cleaning floors? Ruxana shrugged, as if it didn't matter. I had a small flat, lived simply, never married, got sick 2 years ago, couldn't keep up with rent. A social worker helped me find this place. They let me stay here in exchange for helping out. You work here just to have a bed? His voice sharpened. She smiled kindly. It's not as bad as it looks. I've always liked keeping things clean. Gives me peace. And the residents, they feel like family now. Arman looked at her. Really looked. The hands that once tied his shoelaces were now cracked from scrubbing floors. The woman who sang lullabies to him now swept hallways for shelter. And yet, she held no bitterness, no resentment, only grace. But inside him, something stirred. Guilt, shame, and an overwhelming, burning need to do something. Because this wasn't right. And he had the power to change it. That evening, Arman sat in the back of his SUV, staring out the window, but seeing nothing. The city lights blurred past as his driver navigated traffic, but his mind was still in that old courtyard. Still with the woman who once warmed his food and his soul. His assistant, Mira, glanced at him from the front seat. Sir, the next event is at the Hyatt. Should I push it? Arman shook his head slowly. Cancel everything for tonight. A pause. Something wrong? He didn't answer right away. Then, I found the woman who raised me. She's cleaning floors for a bed. The silence that followed was heavy. By the next morning, the staff at the old age home were in a quiet frenzy. A black car arrived, then 2, then a moving van. And before lunch, a new resident was wheeled into the home. Not an elderly person in need, but a delivery. Brand new cleaning equipment, uniforms for every staff member, fresh paint, mattresses, medical supplies, and a check. The director blinked at the number on the donation slip. This is more than our annual budget. Use it, Arman said simply. Fix everything. And Miss Ruxana? She asked, still stunned. He smiled. She's not staying. That afternoon, Arman returned, not with photographers, not for PR, but alone. He found Ruxana folding sheets in the laundry room. Pack your things, he said softly. She turned, confused. Why? Because I'm taking you home. Her eyes widened. Arman, no, I insist. You once gave me a home full of love when my parents didn't have time. Let me return the favor. But your world, your people? He took her hand. They'll adjust. If they can't, they don't belong in my world. Ruxana stepped hesitantly into the apartment, a penthouse overlooking the city skyline, with soft rugs beneath her feet and sunlight pouring in from every angle. But it wasn't the luxury that stopped her. It was the small details. A photo of young Arman, missing front teeth, framed on the entry table. A familiar spice rack in the kitchen, just like the one she used to cook with. A folded shawl she thought had been lost decades ago, somehow preserved in a shadow box on the wall. You kept this, she whispered. I kept everything, Arman said from behind her. You were my childhood, the only one who ever waited at the door when I came home. She turned to him, eyes glistening. "I don't know how to live like this." "You don't have to know," he said gently. "You just have to rest." And she did. The room prepared for her wasn't a spare guest bedroom. It was hers. A space filled with softness and color, with her favorite books, prayer beads, and a window that overlooked a garden below. For the first time in years, Ruxana had her own room, her own peace. No mop in sight, no floors to scrub, just dignity. Arman visited her every evening, sometimes just to sit in silence. Sometimes to eat her homemade dal when she insisted on cooking just once in a while. And every time he left for a business trip, she stood by the door like she used to, waving, smiling. Word spread, of course. "A CEO gives former maid a new life," the headlines read. But Arman didn't care for the praise. Because in his heart, this wasn't charity. This was homecoming. And in a world obsessed with status and wealth, he knew now, it was never the mansions or titles that shaped him. It was a kind woman in a simple sari, who never asked for anything in return.